This podcast recording is brought to you from the staff and friends of IBS.life.net. Each broadcast contains discussion about matters of health and well-being related to IBS that can affect anyone with the condition. All views expressed within these podcasts are personal opinions only and must not be construed as medical advice.
Hi and welcome to another edition of the IBS.life.com podcast series. My name is Kevin Brown and I'm with Sean and Rick. We're all the administrators of the website. Also, that puffy noise you hear on the floor beside me is my dog Billy, so I do apologise for that, but you need to sit by my feet all the time, didn't you, mate? Hello. Okay, now today's subject we're going to talk about, I'm actually going to pass this over to Rick because this is your topic, isn't it?
Yeah, well this podcast we dedicated to a little experiment that I did back earlier in the year, and it essentially left me IBS free for a whole month. And it sort of left me in no doubt that IBS is completely and utterly a man-made issue. So what
do you mean by that, Rick? What man-made issue?
Well, put it this way, I've always believed that IBS is a modern Western world issue. Okay, I mean, like people in the Serengeti, they don't get IBS. People who live off the who live off the land in the Amazon rainforest, they don't get IBS. I mean, for example, the people of Okinawa, they don't get IBS. Okinawa,
Japan.
Little island off Japan. And so basically all the statistics and evidence point towards the fact that wherever people live simple, natural lives, IBS is sort of rarely heard of. It's not an issue for them. Now, the vast majority of people who are suffering from IBS are living in the Western world generally on a Western diet. Now, Okinawa is a really good example. For every 100,000 people that live there, 34.7 of them are actually over the age of 100. Whereas you compare that with the USA, and it has there are only 10 people over the age of 100 for every 100,000. Now, admittedly, Okinawa, they do have the highest ratio of people over the age of 100 in the world. But I mean, like compared with 34 in for every 100,000 in Okinawa and 10 in America, that's a massive difference. Over the past few decades, there has been a change in the way the Okinawans live. The younger generation tend to frequent the fast food outlets that surround the US military bases that are there. And this change has devastating results. In Okinawa today, those people under 50 now have the highest rates of obesity in Japan. They have the highest rates of heart disease and premature death. Now for me, that evidence was compelling enough to try this IBS cure experiment. But in addition, I also took into account the whole Western medicine thing. More and more, we're getting letters to the actual IBS Life website from people saying that, I'm taking this medicine, I'm taking that medicine. I mean, we recently had this guy who's still in college. He wrote to us, he's an athlete, and he's saying that he's popping like 7 different pills a day just to try to keep his IBS in check.
It's a real cocktail, isn't it?
Yeah. And sadly, he's no exception. Every day we're hearing from others who say that they are popping pill after pill to try to stay on top of their IBS. Now, the more I hear and read this, the more I find myself asking the question if it's the medicines themselves, perhaps combined with the poor and often damaging, harmful ingredients found in Western food, that is actually perpetuating this whole IBS issue and causing more and more people to become diagnosed with IBS. Now, I've never made this a secret. I am not, and I never have been, a fan of modern pharmaceutical companies and the so-called medicines they churn out that just so happen to make insanely huge profits. The big pharmaceuticals are there for one reason and one reason only: to make money. Americans now spend a staggering $200 billion per year on prescription drugs, and that figure is growing at a rate of about 12% a year. But people don't seem to grasp the fact that the products they produce are only designed to treat the symptoms, never the cause. They have absolutely no desire to find a cure for anything. I mean, let's think logically about this for a moment. Why would you, as a corporate multinational business, go out of your way to create a product that would effectively send your customers away forever? You wouldn't do it. It would be business suicide.
There's no money in curing people.
Exactly. So instead, you do whatever it takes to keep selling your products. So as you can appreciate, my faith in modern medicine is at an all-time low. Now, I appreciate I'm going off at a tangent here, but the point I'm trying to put across is that given everything I've learned, read and researched about IBS so far, I genuinely do not believe an actual cure for IBS will ever be offered from the drug companies. They may offer a dependence on a drug that could take away most of the IBS symptoms as long as you keep taking it, and it would probably have a whole bunch of side effects like all drugs do. But the drug companies will never ever offer a cure, and anyone living in the hope that one day a magic pill to cure IBS will be invented, I believe, will be disappointed.
So it's really up to the individual to do their own research and experiments.
That's basically what I'm getting at. I mean, I just wanted to lay down the path of where I was coming from when I actually did this experiment that actually cured me of my IBS for 1 whole month. So it made sense to discount the drugs altogether and start looking for an alternative way out. Like I said at the beginning, I'm working on the premise that IBS is a modern Western world issue, and it's generally brought on and perpetuated by our everyday fast-paced lifestyles.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely true. And because people are in such a rush and so stressed out, they also don't take the time, or they haven't simply got the time to cook properly, to eat properly, or to just relax.
Like I said, it's a stress factor.
Yeah.
It's the lack of
I do believe
of
that it's
cardiovascular exercise.
I think it's an element of it. Because there will be a lot of people saying, well, I'm really chilled out, but I've still got IBS.
Yeah.
It's not just about a stress thing.
It's not
it's a mixture of everything. It's stress related.
I think it's unique to every person, but I do think that these days, and like even when I was young, people do not have the time that by the time they get home from work or looking after their children all day, they're so tired and they haven't got any time free to eat properly, and even they even eat on the go or on the way back from work, or grab cups of coffee on their way to it.
Digestion, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I'm glad you brought that up actually, because that was that way of thinking was an integral part of how I put this experiment together. You see, I've always been a strong believer that the body is capable of curing itself sort of 95% of the time if it's given the right opportunity and circumstances in which to do that. By the very, very nature of our Western lifestyle existence, it's not giving our bodies a chance. Okay, if you think about it, when we feed our bodies the junk that's in our food, the additives, the monosodium glutamates, the E numbers, the flavourings, the colourings, the high fructose corn syrup that comes from genetically modified, chemically laced corn that's produced in a laboratory and actually was originally designed to make bovines grow fatter faster. When we consume the chemicals in our rehydrated fruit juices that are designed to make the product look and smell like the original natural product, and when we eat meat and dairy products from the mass-produced sources that have not been grass-fed but fed on genetically modified cattle feed, and that have been injected with growth-promoting hormones and these huge quantities of antibiotics and things like that, and also when we eat our genetically modified fruits and vegetables that have been chemically grown, all the
and
stuff you buy, the loaf of bread that's sort of still soft after 3 weeks.
The thing is, we often don't, when it's something as simple as bread or even milk, we don't really think about what has gone into producing that or what is in it, do we?
Well, that's the scary part.
Yeah, I mean, if it's something that simple...
Well, you want to go simpler than that. How about water? We drink tap water that contains fluoride and chlorine and traces of a serious number of pharmaceutical drugs.
Not me! I drink mineral water.
You do, don't you? You drink bottled water, don't you?
Yeah.
Do you know anything about that, whether it's been filtered or...
It just
where
says
it
it's
comes from?
natural mineral water from, like the Campsie Fells in Scotland or Buxton or something. I actually don't, unless I went to a real spring or that. Have you ever tried that willow water? This is a bit of a tangent, really.
No.
They sell it in Sainsbury's and in health stores, but it's a farmer had put his cattle in this field where there was a natural spring, and there was something wrong with them, and they rather old, and he put them, and they were drinking from this spring, and they were almost miraculously cured.
Really?
And he said they were moving about. Their coats were glossier. They were, and so he started bottling it.
Wow.
It's got some kind of anti-carcinogenic property in it. It's called willow water. So they don't sell it in like.
That sounds quite cool. Unless it's just
I don't know.
A sales pitch.
I read about it a few years ago.
Well, that's a whole new subject anyway.
Yeah.
So
But, yes, I know what you mean though. Water is
if you believe things.
Yeah.
Have you but have you noticed that our water? My mum says she drinks it out of the tap. It makes the throat dry up.
Really?
And mine, yeah.
I can't say no because I always drink filtered water.
Yeah.
I always filter my water.
And you said it tasted like. What did you say? It tasted like limestone the other day.
Well, it did, yeah.
Well, I know it's very hard water.
Well, the thing is,
There's a lot of calcium in the water locally,
I
haven't
drink
we?
it anyway.
It's very hard water, yeah.
But it was the thing beside.
But I know you're not a great advocate of drinking filtered water, are you?
It doesn't
Think
bother
it's
me either way.
But I mean, this might change your mind. A recent news article revealed that antibiotics, anticonvulsants, mood stabilisers, and sex hormones have been found in the drinking water supplies of at least 41 million Americans across 24 regions.
That's a lot of. I would probably take it if it was an mood enhancer. I don't know. But no, I do know what you mean.
Yeah.
It's
But it's the whole again. That boils down to that whole Western lifestyle thing.
It does, but they're trying to feed so many people who consume so much as cheaply as possible.
Yeah, and I honestly believe that is where a lot of our IBS and issues are coming from. I mean, I can go on, like when we consume our sweeteners, our aspartame-based products, because we think we're doing the right thing by avoiding sugar. What we're doing is replacing it with a basically a toxic chemical.
Yeah.
In fact, they've just recently changed the name of one of the artificial sweeteners because everybody's getting wise to it. I think it's the aspartame-based sweeteners.
Yeah.
They changed it to I can't remember what it is. I'll have to jot it down in one of my articles, but they've done it just purely as basically a to con you into eating it again.
Is that legal?
Well,
it's not illegal.
The US government are making it legal.
Yeah.
It's these conglomerate companies have so much political
They do
power.
actually. I mean, I've got personal experience.
Well,
You have, haven't you?
Yeah, but
that's a whole new podcast
that's
itself,
nothing
isn't
to
it?
do. Well, no, it's not really to do with IBS,
But see, the key to this whole thing is educate yourself, isn't it?
Yeah,
Is get wise to it.
it is, and not just really not
The thing
to.
is, they're banking on people who don't.
Well, the problem is people are naturally lazy. They just want to be
Well, a lot of time
put up with what they're told.
Exactly.
They'll
It's
they'll
the
take some
man
face
in the white
value.
coat, man in the white coat syndrome, isn't it? If he tells you this is going to be good for you, then you go, it must be. Then
Most people believe what somebody on the TV, in the government, in a newspaper will tell them because we are that naive. We're really that gullible. People in power or people who are trained know more than we do, so we believe them.
And it's just not true.
Actually, I have got a very good doctor who's
front.
interested in Reiki and things like that.
All right.
Who's very good
That's
with
good.
Diet and things like that.
But I bet he didn't learn that at doctor college.
He didn't. No, he didn't.
No.
He's done it himself, So.
But no, I just like I say, I'm just covering about the way we live in the Western world and why I think it's causing IBS in many of us. I mean, for example, it's not just necessarily what we consume or what we eat. I mean, it's our environment. I mean, we get in our car, we drive to the office. We've got the whole stress of the journey, the rush hour, the traffic jams. And we spend the whole day cooped up in air-conditioned buildings among fluorescent lighting, high electromagnetic fields from computers and other electrical equipment. The air quality, especially if it's air-conditioned, is usually really, really bad, really poor, and your exposure to natural daylight may be limited as well,
which is very good for depression and things like that, isn't it? Even in the winter, to be exposed to real daylight,
exactly,
it's very good for you.
But then when you come home at night, we eat supermarket bought food, often processed, or most of it, we'll go for the TV dinners and things like that because we're just too darn tired to cook a fresh meal from scratch, and then that processed meal is loaded with salt and chemicals and meat from the cow who's been fed genetically modified grain, as well as ground up dead cows, horses, pigs, chickens. The whole thing is loaded up with toxicity, and we're eating this stuff day in, day out.
Because it's cheaper, isn't it?
Exactly. It's cheap, it's convenient, and we might have some potatoes, our genetically modified potatoes with it, or maybe we'll have a salad from some of the we'll go to the supermarket, buy some fruit and vegetables, and we'll have a salad without chemically grown vegetables, because all of the fruit and veg that's grown for the supermarkets en masse is all chemically grown. It's still not bad, not good for you.
But the thing is, I talked about this to Kevin, and the thing is, it's too expensive to buy organic.
Well, that's something I'm going to touch on towards the end of this. That's what I was wondering.
How easy is it for your average person, especially if they've got IBS and maybe they're not working and they can't really afford organic?
This is more of about an awareness thing that I'm trying to put across here, because, like I say, we are being slowly poisoned by all the rubbish that's in our foods, and we just take it for granted that we assume it's all safe, and we eat it without thinking too much about it. Well, if it doesn't give us food
poisoning, we assume it's safe,
Exactly, and there's assumption because that looks like a nice healthy pepper or a nice healthy apple, then it's okay, but the whole genetic thing, the genetic modification thing that's going on, it's just getting bigger and bigger, and it when you start scratching away at the surface and looking into it, it actually does get a little bit.
It is alarming.
There's a lot of information out there. Obviously, I'm not going to go into it all here, but there's a lot of information out there. I do encourage people to go out and start looking at exactly what we're actually getting in our food. But like I say, it's not just limited to what we eat; it's our environment as well. Things like, for example, when we shower, our skin absorbs more chlorine than our body actually absorbs when we drink water from the tap. But not on top of that, we cover ourselves in all sorts of concoctions, shower gels, cleaning chemicals. I don't know what effects they're having on me. Do you? Do you know what effects they're having on you?
No. I've honestly never considered it.
No. But the thing is, this is just normal, everyday living for most of us here in the Western world. And we wonder why so many of us have IBS and all sorts of other health issues as well. Now, like I said, I've always believed the body is capable of curing itself most of the time if it is simply given the right opportunity and circumstances in which to do that. But how on earth can the body have a chance to look after itself and cure itself from disease and things like IBS when we are constantly bombarding it with all this crap? Because that's what it is. I'm sorry to swear here, but it is crap.
It is. It's a build-up of chemicals, isn't it?
And the thing is, when we consume these things, our poor bodies have to deal with them, and our bodies are spending more and more time and energy having to sort of process and deal with all these chemicals and toxins and undesirable things. And that's why nobody sort of has any energy anymore. That's why 50% of Americans are on some sort of some form of antidepressant. That's why IBS affects 1 person in 10 and is on seriously on the rise. Well, at least that was and still is my theory, and it's the theory and approach on which I based this entire experiment. I know we've gone off at a tangent a bit here, but this experiment is something I did, and I genuinely cured myself of IBS for 1 full month. And I'm basically going to tell you what I did now. So here's what I did. Okay, the experiment was actually pretty straightforward. I essentially went back in time 50 years. Okay, not literally. I haven't got a time machine or anything like that.
Podcast about that, definitely.
But basically, what I did is I altered my lifestyle to avoid as much of this modern day living as I could. It's pretty straightforward. It's sort of logical when you think about
basics,
it.
Isn't it?
Exactly. For me, it was like trying to hit a reset button, sort of trying to take it right back to basics, and that's exactly what I did. I completely changed my diet. Okay, I decided to only eat nature's foods. In my case, that meant only vegetables. I didn't actually do any fruit this time round because, fruit could be a little bit difficult. I mean, pears are okay, but any sort of citrus fruits may be responsible for IBS. So I thought, well, I'll just completely cut out fruit. I'll only concentrate on vegetables. Now, here's the important thing. Everything that I ate was organically grown. Okay, there were no chemically grown supermarket fruits and vegetables. Only produce that I bought from my local organic farm, and most of it was grown organically. Okay, there were a few items like peppers that were shipped in from abroad, but were certified as organic.
So where was this?
This over at Purton, just down the road. Oh, right. There's a great little farm shop there, and they grow most of it locally. Lovely people, you can have a chat with them and that. Really, really good stuff. But they're certified organic. And now, again, that's another thing to note. The supermarkets have a very different idea about what's organic than you or I have.
I was going to say, yeah.
But that's a whole other article. I know we need to get on. Time's moving on, so we need to wind this up. But my main staple was organic rice, okay, which I heated in a saucepan. I did not use the microwave at any time during the 1 month experiment, so everything was heated the old-fashioned way on the gas hob. Now, a week prior to starting this regime, I also cut out tea and coffee and had this horrendous caffeine withdrawal headache for about a week, which I swear to God, I am never ever going to touch tea or coffee again, because I just, now I'm off it. It's like I've sort of come out of rehab or whatever, But I didn't realise just how much of an effect tea and coffee had on it until I just stopped taking it. And like I say, this headache was horrible for a week and it just didn't go away. And then all of a sudden it went away, and all of a sudden, life was good again. The only beverage I had on this experimental month was organic fruit and herbal teas, mainly spearmint and red bush tea. And I only drank filtered water. And for bread, and yes, I did say bread, I actually ate bread. Now, I used to think that bread was one of my IBS trigger foods, but as it turns out, this particular bread did not trigger any IBS reaction at all. Although I should say this was no ordinary bread. I actually made my own bread from wheat. That's not flour, that's actually wheat. I actually ground the wheat down into flour and made the bread from that. And again, I used all natural and organic ingredients. And I have to say the bread was at least 500% more tasty than the stuff that you get from the supermarkets.
I can verify that.
Yeah, Kev's tasted it, haven't you?
Yeah, like half a loaf, didn't
yeah, absolutely lovely stuff.
Tastes lovely, yeah.
So I even had organic butter on it, which was quite possibly the nicest butter I've ever had. We used to get the regular supermarket butter, and I literally compared the two side by side, and the organic butter, it sort of tasted alive. The stuff from the supermarket, it just tasted dead. There was something just not alive about it. I can't really sort of explain it, but if you try it, you'll understand what I'm saying.
Maybe it's worth at some point. I was tell us the results you've got from this diet you've had. Maybe you could present that to the IBS Life website users in the form of a diet plan.
I'm actually thinking of
grind their own.
Well, that's another thing as well. I think of practical things. How practical.
Well, this is what I'm going to cover right at the end, because it was the practicality of this that sort of. I mean, it's why I only did it for a month, because. I'll cover it at the hour. I've just got a little tiny bit left to talk about. But yeah, I cut out all dairy foods. Okay, but I did eat organic eggs for the protein. And I have to say, the difference between a proper organic egg and the stuff you get in the supermarket.
We've had them at least.
That's right, yeah. Your sisters, when we stayed out there, the eggs fresh, literally, they laid them out, help yourself.
Fresh from the
really
chicken's
yellow.
bottom.
That's it, you got it.
Exactly.
It's a completely golden
yellow.
yolk, isn't it? Really.
The taste is so much better. The shells are a lot thicker.
Yeah, that's right. That's what you said, wasn't it?
Yeah. And the difference is
the colours, just everything.
So in your face different, you
can see it. You can see that it's completely natural, completely fresh.
Yeah.
And things when you look at that, and then you get your supermarket variety.
There is something about those shells that are really thin. With
from the battery heads and that. Yeah, they're just not. They're not right, are they?
Yeah.
They're just not right. Again,
that's another topic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Itself, battery farming and stuff.
But no cheese, no meats, except I had 2 pieces of organic chicken breast, which I actually bought from the farm.
From
the actual Perton farm.
Oh,
and they actually, what they say is they slaughter their chickens on site, so they're not stressed. They do it early in the morning, when the chickens are still quite docile first thing in the morning, so they're totally non-stressed. Very, very quick process. And again, it was a little bit expensive. I paid about £2 more for 2 chicken breasts than you would in a normal supermarket. So it's not crazy.
What's that in dollars?
It's not bad.
£2.
About $3.5 more than ordinary supermarket, chicken. But again, the taste was just unbelievably good. And basically 2 pieces of organic chicken breast, I made it last the whole month, and it wasn't an issue. And the other thing was I only ate when I was hungry. So instead of eating set meals at set times, it's dinner time, I better have something. What I did is I would only get food when hunger compelled me to do so. And this worked well, and I actually lost weight as well. And the other thing was when I showered, I used a shower filter. I've still got it. I still use it now. That basically takes out the chlorine and heavy metals from the water. You can actually buy these little things, and you just screw them onto your the shower hose. And they're an inline thing, not very expensive, about £12 on eBay I think I got it for. And again, that was really good. I noticed the soap, the soap
What
hangs
soap
around
did
for
you
ages.
use?
Well, I used, I can't remember the name of it. That was the other point I was going to say. I actually used a natural shampoo and a natural organic soap. Natural base. Sorry, it was a shower gel, not a soap. I can't remember what they were called, but perfectly fine. No problem with those.
Well, it wouldn't be with natural, no.
But anyway, and the other thing was when I settled down in the evening, instead of watching TV, because I've got a television in my bed, I actually physically shut it off, turned it right off, and I read a book.
Yeah.
For a month I read. Okay, I didn't sit in front of the TV. Results, unbelievable, fantastic. Literally within a couple of days, the results were massively noticeable. The IBS just went away completely, and it stayed away all the time. I maintained this routine, which was 1 full month. Okay. And on top of that, I started to sleep like a baby. I had clearer thinking. Everything sort of had this clarity to it
That's
that
amazing.
wasn't there before.
That's something that I wouldn't expect. I mean, for the IBS to go is brilliant, but for you to feel better and more alert, it's quite incredible.
It's like through eating all this junk food and everything, we've got this numbness.
It's all sugar.
Almost like
Almost
like waking up with a hangover, but permanently.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
also a detox.
Rogginess.
Yeah,
Exactly.
in a way.
And like I said, I had clearer thinking, I had more energy, and come the evenings, normally sort of 4 or 5 o'clock, I'm just sort of like, just sit me in front of the telly, I don't want to do anything.
Just like most people on earth.
Well, come the evenings, I still had energy. I mean, one evening I was kind of sitting there twiddling my thumbs. I couldn't really get into the reading I was doing. I actually wanted to get in the van and go off and maybe have a quick look at the coast or something. I mean, that's 2.5 hours away. I didn't do it, but I wanted to.
Yeah.
You know?
You had the energy to do it.
Yeah, I had the energy in the evening. Now, here's the weirdest thing of all. I felt less hungry while I was doing this. I didn't get that hungry at all. I always had porridge in the morning. That was again organic oats. It wasn't made in the microwave. It was made in a saucepan, and that sort of saw me through till sort of 3, 4, 5 in the evening. At which point I would feel a little bit hungry, and as soon as I started eating, I'd get half a plate full through half a plate full, and my brain was saying, "Okay, you've had enough now," which is just I don't know how or why that came about, but it happened.
So really, if you eat more natural food, you don't want to eat as much, so people would lose weight and not have an obesity problem.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. And like I say, the whole thing was just a fantastic experiment. Of course, you're probably going to say, well, why aren't you doing it now? I mean, this is like
I was wondering.
Several weeks later. First of all, cost. It was expensive to do. The cost of buying organic, especially if all you're eating is organic, you're not supplementing with other foods, then the cost was expensive. I'm not a rich man, and the cost was a little bit prohibitive, even though I was eating sort of less. And the other thing was just the whole routine. It's really, really hard to keep up the routine. I mean, the last thing most people want to do 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the evening is start cooking a meal from scratch, peeling vegetables and doing things like that. And I kept it up religiously for a month just because it was like a self-induced scientific experiment, and it had fabulous results. But there's no way I could keep it up on a permanent basis. I mean, I suppose if I was really determined, I could. But
I think it's all come down to self-discipline and how much you want the results and how much you want to do it. I suppose there's also the way you could do it long term is a compromise, and I suppose have half and half, or try as best as you can.
Well, I mean, the best way of doing it would be to do it for a month, completely eliminate the IBS. Keep a food diary as well, and then start reintroducing things one at a time.
That's one of the best strategies they tend to do for people anyway.
Well, it's sort of like an elimination diet.
Exactly. They try everything, record it, and see how what actually brings about. Because they might find it's like peppers, or it's like chilies, or it's whatever it is that's bringing their IBS. A lot of them find out by eliminating it.
I also think in the older days, like when you said you went back 50 years, mostly like thinking of my nan, although she actually did work full time because she was a teacher, but there was usually a a woman in the house all day being able to do this preparation
Right.
and the cooking and the vegetables. And often people had like a little plot of land or an allotment or a garden. So there was usually somebody there all the time, and while the guy was out doing his work. So it was easier because there's always someone preparing it. If you've got to do it yourself and do your other things as well.
That's right.
That's when people haven't got any time. And most women do work these days, don't they? So, coming in and grinding the corn is not...
Actually, I should mention that this year I'm going for growing my own. I've got a tiny little garden, but I'm actually doing a garden website called Container Gardening for Food. I'll just get a shameless plug in there, containergardeningforfood.com. And it's all about trying to grow your own organic food and vegetables, even though you've got only... I've got a little tiny patio garden, and I'm trying to grow as much food as I can. Again, basically because buying organic food is quite expensive. And do
you notice the difference in the taste though?
Absolutely.
Because
absolutely, no question about it. Organic food is so much nicer. But again, I would advise against buying organic food from the supermarkets because there's certain legislation. I know, especially in America, there's certain legislations which allow the supermarkets to still use certain things that you and I wouldn't consider as organic, but they do.
Yeah.
There's, I don't know, there are loopholes in law, or whatever, but they're allowed to stick with organic.
But better than the non-organic, aren't they? So if
I
that's
presume
the best you can do, is to get the organic ones from a supermarket.
But if you can find a local farmer,
it helps them as well.
But it is a cost issue as well, isn't it, for many people. But
or just sorry, just
choke on his red bush tea.
But if you, if you can grow your own, then even better.
Yeah, that's the best.
You know exactly its origins. You know where it's come from. You know what's gone into it. You don't have to, use chemicals and things on it.
I remember when, because Nan had an allotment and my uncle and my granddad were always out in it. They grew lots of vegetables. They had gooseberries and soft fruit as well. But I when I moved away into Swindon, I remember going back out there for a Sunday lunch, and it was like an explosion of taste.
Really?
I couldn't believe that I'd had that
fabulous.
all my childhood. I accepted it was lovely. After my mum buying supermarket food, I must have been about 16, and I sat down for a Sunday lunch, and it was all from the allotment, and I was just like, I can't believe that a potato tastes that good.
It's amazing.
Fantastic, isn't it?
It's all in nature, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But this is a whole issue of trying to grow too much food for a society that consumes too much food.
Yeah, there's
the
so
first
much waste
world
as well,
anyway. Yeah, there is a massive waste. There was a programme on about some guy going out to the back of Sainsbury's with all this stuff that was thrown away. It wasn't even out of date.
That. That's right.
I mean, that's shameful. That's absolutely shameful.
Well, it's been a fascinating subject that I'm sure that we'll talk about on the website.
Well, I hope to put an article up on
that
it
would be an interesting
sort of
article.
summarise what I did, and hopefully if anybody wants to follow what I did. And if you find a way of doing it a little bit more efficiently, because quite often I would sit there with a bunch of vegetables in front of me, not quite knowing what to do with them.
Well, that's it. We also appreciate your comments as well.
Do you boil them? Do you steam them? Do you fry them? Do you eat them raw? Because I'm not a cookie sort of person. I've always.
I was going to say we'd appreciate your comments on this. The listeners, do you do your own gardening? Do you do organic farming? Leave a comment on the blogs.
I'll tell you what. I'll put an article up about this over the next week or so, and I'll put a have your say form at the bottom of it. So if you want to make a contribution and let us know how whether you've tried something like this, then feel free to contribute.
A pity that it's actually very simple, like you said, putting the clock back, and yet it is expensive and time consuming, and it's a lot of it is the time as well, isn't it?
Like I say, it was the time and the preparation time that in the end told me that I couldn't be doing this all the time.
No, not unless
even though I really want to.
The thing that it's like I suppose you could learn to love to do it.
If you really like cooking and like Jamie Oliver and all that, and he always goes and gets his meat from the local farm, doesn't he?
But that's his trade. I've still got a living to earn, so I've got to spend time at my job.
People who've got to go to work, look after kids, or like you said, to come home to a bunch of vegetables and then cook them and when they're exhausted and they
But maybe we just need a change in our attitude in
I-
society.
I think it's about it's one
not
of the-
having to work
It was-
so
I
many
was gonna say,
days
no,
a week.
it's one of the things that I often read about or learn about, like a habit form and how habits are formed, and by the act of repeating things over and over again, eventually becomes a habit and becomes second nature. You don't think about it.
That's
Same as
right.
this sort of thing. The more you do any kind of action, I think it's something like 21 times. I can't
So
remember
you
exact
keep
figures.
something up for 21 days,
If you
it
keep
becomes
it
a habit.
consecutively all the
Yeah.
time,
That's right.
eventually it becomes a habit. And
Yeah.
what that means is that you will do it automatically and don't even think about doing it.
Mm.
I think that because it's such a change for someone to say suddenly start making their own potatoes, doing their own thing.
That would
Yeah.
be easy, making your own potatoes.
You know what I mean?
I should be
Yeah.
trying that this year in some bags.
But
Yeah.
That's a
so
whole nother
I
podcast.
think we're winding this one down now. This has been probably our
Yeah,
longest podcast.
yeah,
so
it's
far.
quite a
But
long
it is
podcast.
it is a fascinating subject.
If you've got this far, well done.
Well, yeah, thank you for
Congratulations and
listening.
thanks for listening.
It's something I like people to write in about though, because
because
You'd definitely like to
Yeah.
get some feedback on
well,
this
like
one.
you said, Rick, I
If
think
people
realistically
manage to-
this is probably one of the major factors of what IBS is, and that
yes,
you know,
definitely. I think
the
that
diet
is
and
very
the,
true.
you know,
The diet,
But
the
it's
lifestyle,
just
the
the
toxic.
fact we've actually
It's
and
like a
put it
tox-
to the test
yeah.
and
the
it
fact
worked.
That, the fact that it is
You know?
a modern day illness.
Mm.
You know, 50 odd years ago, it may have been around, but it wasn't called IBS then, was it? They may have been. Whatever.
Yeah, people would all just have upset stomachs
Exactly.
because they're worried.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 It's
but,
like
but it's
yeah.
now a recognised condition now,
that it's a chronic condition,
and it's
isn't it?
increasing. More
And
people
it's
are getting
increasing,
diagnosed
yeah.
with it. You know,
So there you go. If anybody come up with a time machine,
We'll go
I'd
in
be
it.
happy to be to volunteer. Yeah.
Well, there you go. On that note, we'll wrap this one up now. My name's Kevin Brown.
Yeah, I'm Rick. Thanks for listening,
And I'm Sian. Thank you very much.
and we'll catch up with you in the next podcast.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
IBSLife.net. Created for people with IBS by people with IBS.